Happy Hanukkah, happy holidays. We'll be conducting this city council meeting in a virtual setting. Council members and staff are participating from remote locations. Chamber is currently closed to the public. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live this evening on Spectrum Channel 3 and 22, AT&T Uverse Channel 99, and or El Segundo TV at youtube.com. Or you may access remotely via Zoom from an electronic device of choice. The meeting information for joining is outlined on tonight's agenda. Please remember to mute your mics when not speaking. This is for the council members. And if making a motion or a second, please do so using your last name in order for the clerk to hear and report correctly. And it's great to see Father Alexei here. We're going to have Father Alexei Smith of the St. Andrew Russian Greek Catholic Church lead our invocation this evening. And then the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Council Member Perstek. So Father Alexei, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let us pray. Almighty God, as the moonlight fills the sky this evening, as your Jewish children celebrate their Feast of Lights, and as your Christian children are about to celebrate their Feast of Light, fill both the members of our City Council and those members from the public who will provide them with input with your radiant light. Your primary utterance of creation was, "Let there be light." The festival of Hanukkah is expressed by the ceremonial lighting of candles, which increase daily in number to symbolize how light exceeds the darkness. And in the Gospel according to St. John, we read that the light came into the world and the darkness did not cover it up. Help all of us to meet this meeting's responsibilities and let nothing separate us from your love. Allow your sustaining light to shine on the members of our City Council, that they may not falter in the just exercise of their responsibilities and in their commitment to both the residents and business sectors of our city, that laboring together, we can wed both our residents and those engaged in commercial endeavors here into one united, harmonious people who share not only a common human origin, but also the blessings of living and working in our city. Send all of them and all of us your compassionate light, that we may never forget those residents of our city that are less fortunate than are we, and those who may be afflicted with the coronavirus. Lord, let your radiance dawn in our lives this night. Fill our hearts with your love, and may our love for you be reflected in our love for one another and our service to both our city and its people. Amen.
Thank you, Father. Councilmember Perstek.
So please stand and face the flag and put your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you both, Father. It's great to see you.
Likewise.
Councilmember Perstek, thank you very much. Okay, now is the time and place for public communication. Do we have anyone, Tracy or Mona?
Let me take. Can I take roll call first? Just.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Councilmember Giroux.
Here.
Councilmember Nickel.
Here.
Councilmember Perstek.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
Here.
And Mayor Boyles.
Here.
Okay.
Okay, and with public communications, Tracy, do we have anyone that you're seeing there, or Mona?
So anyone that's in the attendees right now, if you're here for public communications, if you could please raise your hand by either clicking it if you're in Zoom via video, or if you can do it by *9. Okay.
I'm seeing no one in the participants dialogue box.
No, it's, yeah, I'm gonna send over a Susan Rocha.
Okay.
Hi, I believe I'm with the City of Los Angeles, so I'm probably a lower agenda item. I thought you were just collecting
Oh, okay.
People.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Just a
that's okay. Thank you, Ms. Rocha.
Sure.
Then no one else has raised their hand.
Okay. And do we have any written public comments?
We do not.
Okay, that concludes public communication. Special presentation. First up, we have recognition. I'm going to turn it over to Chief Donovan. Welcome back, Chief.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you all, Mayor, members of council. Along with my colleagues tonight, we have quite a few folks that we're going to recognize for retirement. And I'm going to lead it off with, in my opinion, a very special person that's been working for our community, and that's Fire Marshal James Carver. Fire Marshal Carver was hired February 25th, 1991 as a Fire Protection Inspector 1, and quickly learned the importance of this community and the importance of fire and life safety in our community. He was then promoted July 7th, 1999 as a Principal Fire Prevention Specialist. And then on October 1st, 2006, he was appointed as the Fire Marshal for our community, where he has served since then. Fire Marshal Carver cares deeply for El Segundo and has spent a majority of his career, as I mentioned, advocating for fire and life safety for the residents, business owners, and visitors of our community. He is truly a consummate professional and a walking thesaurus of everything which is El Segundo in the building and fire realm, as well as a few other realms. He's a very knowledgeable person. Fire Marshal Carver has always been involved in education throughout his career and prides himself on partnering with the Rotary on educating the community related to fire prevention awareness. And if the council will remember, the Fire Prevention Division and the Rotary Club sponsored an annual community awareness campaign and fire prevention poster contest for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, which he originated. Mr. Carver has also been active not only in our community, but as professional memberships. He's been the past president of the South Bay Fire Prevention Officers Association, as well as the Southern California Fire Prevention Officers Association, the South Bay Fire Arson Task Force Committee as a previous board member, and code development at the national level, as well as coordinating and leading the combined efforts for the South Bay cities to adopt the California Fire Code with their first adoption of the International Fire Code. He was tasked to do a lot of work, not only here in El Segundo, but in the state and nationally as well. He's really led by example and was twice the recipient of the Rotarians Community Service Award, exemplifying service above self, and probably the most prestigious award, which was bestowed on him, and rightfully so, was in 2016. He received the William E. Fox Award given by the California Fire Chiefs Association Fire Prevention Officers, and was recognized for outstanding effort and development in the field of fire prevention. He has faithfully served the community for 29 years, and it has been my honor to work with Fire Marshal Carver, who I truly consider the best in the business. He certainly will be missed. And I lead tonight's recognition of retirees with Fire Marshal Carver. It's a bittersweet time. He's been an outstanding employee and has been an absolute advocate for fire and life safety in our community. So with that, I'd like to just recognize Fire Marshal Carver, and I thank you for your time, sir.
Excellent. Chief, is he on or no?
He indicated that he was going to be able to make the meeting. I don't know if he's in the waiting room. Or did you by chance see him in the waiting room?
I do not see him in the waiting room.
My apologies. I was told he was going to be able to make it onto the Zoom here.
Okay. Well, he'll be missed. It's been a long time. I've actually worked with him a lot, both in the office and then on private matters as well, too. So he's done a great job for the city. All right. Thank you, sir.
If he
Appreciate that.
pops on, we can always let you know and move him
Yeah,
over.
that'd be great, regardless of when it is. That's great. Thanks, Tracy.
Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Okay, next up we have Melissa McCullum. I'll turn it over to you, Melissa.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the opportunity to recognize Jackie Day this evening for her 13 years of service to the El Segundo community. Jackie is a wonderful example of the city representative that you want. She's friendly and helpful and positive, knowledgeable and kind, and she's received accolade after accolade since announcing her upcoming retirement. At the last Rec and Parks Commission meeting, all spoke about her impact, including supporting the Rec and Parks Commission, the Gateway Committee, and the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, as well as her help issuing special permits for the Run for Education, for Art Fair, and many other citywide celebrations. Aricia even credited Jackie with helping convince her to work for the city of El Segundo due to her extraordinary friendliness during the interview process. We're going to miss Jackie as a colleague for many, many reasons, but we're very excited about her next adventure and wish her a very happy retirement. And Jackie was not able to join us on the Zoom this evening, but definitely wanted to thank you for the recognition and for the plaque and for her many years working for the city of El Segundo.
Outstanding. Thank you. Yeah, she'll be missed. Always smiling. Any council members have any comments? It's a little awkward because normally we would gather, in the chamber and take a picture and have some comments. This is a little awkward. But yes, Councilman Nickel.
I just wanted to mention that Jackie is such a wonderful person. I wish her nothing but the best. And if my memory serves me correctly, she actually applied as a staff member. She applied for a position on a committee and was put on a committee before it was then found that staff members could not hold positions on committees. So she not only worked for the city, but she volunteered for the city. One of a kind, great human, and I wish her all the best. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Okay, thanks. Melissa, it looks like that's it on that one. Okay, thank you for being here. Appreciate your time. All right, next we have David Gray, who's been with the city 26 years, and I think Chief Whalen is going to introduce this one.
Well, good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council, El Segundo community. I think I'm going to continue the theme that was set by my colleagues in saying this is a bittersweet evening. I'm going to start with David Gray, but I also have 3 other members of the police department that we're going to say goodbye to this evening. And with that, collectively well over 100 years of experience, and that will be missed. But to start with David Gray, he started as a computer systems network specialist in 1994 with the El Segundo Police Department. And just looking at how technology has progressed through the years, we know what that technology looked like in 1994. And I would argue that there was probably electric typewriters still throughout the police department, and he probably had to fix one of the 2 of those as he transitioned to this new thing called a computer that became prevalent in all our workspaces. And Dave is really an iconic fixture in the police department, and has had his hands in really every sort of technological improvement that we have done through the years. And about 1.5 years ago, with a city reorganization, David then reported under the ISD division and worked for Charles Mallory. But I can tell you that David's heart was always in the police department. No offense to anybody else, but I know how he felt, and he will be missed. He will be missed by all of us, and he has definitely a strong legacy that will continue well into the future. So Dave, if you're listening, thank you very much. He's also a longtime El Segundo resident and really a fixture here in the community. And Mayor, I apologize. I have an order on my everybody to talk about here, but I don't know quite. You know what? I'll just go. You read the next name off, and I'll just keep on going down. How's that, sir?
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, next up is Lieutenant Kim.
All right. Well, Lieutenant Kim, he again, somebody that's been here quite a long time. He's been at the El Segundo Police Department for almost 28 years. And he's worked really almost every assignment that there is. He was a motor officer. He was assigned to the SWAT team. Of course, he was in patrol. And most recently, we'll remember, he led our community engagement division, which when I reorganized the police department now a couple of years ago, I specifically tasked him for that job because of his enthusiasm, because of his really desire to roll up his sleeves and get involved. And that division it was designed not only to be our point people on addressing Part 1 crime issues, but also to be our central point of focus for interacting with people in our community, both through social media and interacting with our homeless. And all of those were very important issues, not only to myself, but the city council at the time. And I think Dan did a fantastic job addressing all of those, and his leadership will be missed. A little fun fact about Lieutenant Kim, and I just learned this the other day, is because of how young he looked in the police academy, he was actually pulled out early to work an undercover assignment at the El Segundo High School, where he was tasked, I guess, by marijuana and other things like that. And once he was finished with that assignment, he was sent back to finish the academy, and then he came back and worked patrol. And heard stories about things like that. It's not done anymore, but that was certainly some interesting stories he had to tell at the time. Dan, you will be missed, and I really appreciate him laying the groundwork for our community engagement division, and I expect great things from that unit in the days to come.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief. Please give him our regards. And then we have Danella.
All right, Danella. So we would know her more commonly by Donna. Donna has been assigned to our records unit for 30 years. So she is one of the most tenured employees, if not the most tenured employee at the police department. And if you think about police department records, I can think back now, I have a little over 30 years in the business, and I know what the records departments were like at the time. Photographs were something we printed out and stored in this little small file cabinet, along with print cards and everything else that went along with it. Records has changed quite a bit through the years. It required people to be adaptable and forward thinking, and Donna was definitely one of those people. And Donna, if you're listening, what I will always be fond of with you and remember the most is your candor. And you know, when you're leading an organization, you rely on those tenured people who are really respectfully but willing to come in and tell you what their observations are and what their assessments are based on their years of experience. And Donna was definitely one of those people. I think that she had remarkable insight into the police department. I think that she definitely provided value, and especially her comments were very valuable to me as I made decisions along the way. And Donna, I wish you the best in retirement, and I know that I will miss you, and I know I can speak for the rest of your team and records. You will be missed there as well, and especially as we are even continuing our evolution of our records and transitioning to a new records management system, new CAD RMS, and looking to go digital in the future. People with Donna's tenure will definitely be missed in that transition. And I think, sir, that leaves me to Larry Harrington as next up here. Okay, Larry is been with the police department for 29 years. Larry is a police service officer, and that's a general title. They do a lot of different things. They're probably most visible as our jailers, but they also do animal control. They work the front counter. And what Larry has been doing most recently is working as a court liaison officer. And that is actually an incredibly important job. He's the one that has to make sure that all the paperwork's in order whenever we make an arrest, then take it over to the courthouse and get the case filings along with the detectives. He also makes sure that when we have significant felony in custody arrests, that they also make it over for their arraignments, and that the timeliness issues are all followed to a T with that. And a little fun fact with Larry is he's actually one of our department armorers and range masters. And it was because of his affinity for that and his talent in that many, many years ago, he was selected for that role. And that's probably how I work most closely with Larry, is it just seems with my schedule, trying to find time to get down to the range. Larry has always made it a time in his schedule to get me down there and make sure that I'm keeping up with everybody else and what I need to do down there. Larry was instrumental as we just redid the range and brought it up to modern times with technology and so forth. And he definitely lent his help and experience with that. And Larry, you will also be missed. And just, sir, if you don't mind, in closing with all of these people, it's a tremendous amount of talent that is leaving. And again, when I say bittersweet, I'm definitely happy for all of them. They've all put service above self for many, many years. They all have a very nice opportunity now to retire and enjoy their families and their friends and all the things that they had to sacrifice through the years. And I really do truly wish all of them well. And on behalf of the entire police department, wish them nothing but the best and thank them all for their service. And sir, I believe that concludes, and I hope there's no last minute retirement piece that I don't have on here, but I think that will conclude the police department tonight.
Thank you, Chief. Over 100 years of collective experience leaving El Segundo PD. I know you got a good bench, so that's good, but that's substantial. A lot of years. Thank you, sir. Okay, last but not least, we have the person that's retiring with the longest tenure of this list at 32 years. And I've known this person a long time. Actually, his sons grew up with my sons, and I know through his retirement, I'll be seeing him a lot more at the jetty. He'll be surfing with Louis out there midday. And so, Elias, do you want to introduce the final retiree of the evening?
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. The individual, his name is Damian Voss. Damian is retiring after 32 years plus. He's married. He has 8 kids and 5 grandchildren. He was born in Inglewood and he grew up in South Bay and LA County. He's also a great plumber, I've been told. He's a plumbing expert and has been employed in water division of El Segundo since 1988. He's also a great surfer, I heard. He's extremely good surfer. So we all gonna wish him a very happy retirement and happy surfing. He will be missed, and thanks for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Damien, we wish you the best. See you out there. Okay, and then next up, that's it for retirements. We have a recognition. And normally about this time of year, we are doing an event with the Chamber of Commerce at Mattel. And it's a great mixer every year. And the person that led that is a gentleman by the name of Frank Maranto. And Frank is retiring from Mattel. So I've got a commendation for him to read. It says, whereas Frank Maranto, Vice President, Global Security, Facilities, and Indirect Procurement, retired after a 20-year career with Mattel. And whereas Frank began his career as Facilities Director and was quickly promoted to Vice President of the Worldwide Facilities Team, he created a dedicated team that always strived for excellence. And whereas in 2014, Frank gained responsibility over the Global Security Department and continued to develop the team to protect Mattel's El Segundo campus, its assets and intellectual property. And whereas over the past 8 months, Frank helped Mattel navigate the pandemic, prepared the campuses, and maintained operations, all while keeping employees' health and safety at the forefront. And whereas Frank championed Mattel's long-term partnership with ARNC to provide employment opportunities to adults with developmental disabilities, making Mattel headquarters one of the state's largest single location employers of the underserved population. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Before the pandemic, Mattel employed over 50 ARNC clients in mail services and various facility maintenance roles. Several Mattel team members have successfully competed in Special Olympics over the years. And whereas Frank was always especially dedicated to supporting the El Segundo community, whether in contractor or vendor selection, or in his patronage of local establishments. And whereas the Mattel security team cooperated closely with the El Segundo police and fire departments, preparing for crisis response, assisting with training, and hosting the El Segundo emergency radio antenna on Mattel's roof, for example. And whereas Frank and his team played a very important role in ensuring the success each year of the Salute to El Segundo reception hosted by Mattel in conjunction with the El Segundo Chamber to honor current and past city leadership. He particularly enjoyed welcoming and entertaining Mattel's guests at the mixer. This year, notwithstanding, the Mattel facilities team also always proudly delivered toys for El Segundo's tree lighting and other local events. Now, therefore, on this 15th day of December 2020, the mayor and members of the city council of the city of El Segundo, California, hereby extend our congratulations and sincere best wishes to Frank Maranto on his retirement. And, oh, Frank's there. Hey, good to see you. Thank you for being here this evening.
I am. Thank you.
Yeah,
you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
On the retirement. You want to say a few words, sir?
Just a couple, yeah. First off, I'd like to just tell you guys what an honor it's been to be a part of the El Segundo community. It's just been a great experience for me. I've been with Mattel for almost 21 years, and during that time, I saw the city grow from something that was very small, and I think they used to call it Mayberry, and to something much larger. And but as El Segundo grew, it actually got better, which I think is a real tribute to everybody at the city there. I'd like to extend my appreciation and thank you to the Building and Safety Department, the Planning Department, Police, Fire. Ditto what the fire chief said about James Carver. He was just a true professional, wonderful man to work with, and as most people there at El Segundo. We love the participation with the city, doing whether it was lighting the Christmas trees or chamber meetings or what have you. It's been a real honor. Mattel, I will tell you one secret about Mattel that I can now say that I couldn't when I was there, and that is Mattel loves El Segundo. We're very proud to be in this city and be a part of the growth of the city. So I look forward to coming back and visiting and seeing all the progress and what have you. My successor is on this call also. His name is Sean Sanders. He's going to carry the torch just like I did and be a great partner for the city. So we appreciate that very much. Hopefully I'll be up in El Segundo soon because I miss Chef Hannes, and I'm going to go get some takeout there and hopefully put a couple of pounds on and hopefully have a nice retirement. But
Awesome.
Thanks to everybody. It's really been a fantastic experience, and it's a real honor to receive this recognition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maranto. And I know Corinne Murat's on. I didn't notice her right away because she wasn't on video. Hey, Corinne, long time no see. Esteemed member of our El Segundo Economic Development Advisory Council. Corinne, you want to say a few words as well, please?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. We're thrilled. Yeah, Frank said it. I think we are part of the El Segundo community and are enjoying having for many years hosted the community. Unfortunately, this year we are not together, but we will do this again, and we look forward to it, and we look forward to seeing everybody again, whether it's at the toy store or in town or elsewhere. I just wanted to thank everybody and say happy holidays. Thank you.
Thank you. Great seeing you, Corinne. Happy holidays. And Frank, congratulations. Thank you both. Okay, next up we have the holiday events update by Melissa McCullum.
Good evening again, and happy holidays. I loved City Council's recent holiday message and virtual tree lighting produced by El Segundo Media. You all did a wonderful job. And if any community members haven't seen it yet, I encourage you to check it out on the city's website or social media accounts. I would also like to invite the El Segundo community to join the El Segundo Public Library for a virtual holiday program on Thursday, December 17th at 7 p.m. Over 200 cheer kits filled with songs and crafts and snacks have been picked up via Library to Go in anticipation of the evening of storytelling, music, art, and more. Special thanks to Julie Todd, to Roz Templin, and the rest of the library's programming team for planning the evening, as well as to Mayor Boyles, who's scheduled to read a story as part of the event. Please call the library at 310-524-2728 for more information. I'm also happy to report that Community Service has collected over 200 letters for Santa this month. Kids that included addresses will be receiving a handwritten response. In addition, more than 200 holiday greetings were collected at the library at the request of Senior Housing Board President Paul Lanyi for the residents of Park Vista. Linnea Palmer reports that the Holiday Hustle at the Aquatic Center has 68 active participants ranging from 29 to 83 years old. And to date, they've recorded 28,487 laps and 2,661 minutes of water walking. Current age group leaders include Kevin Shinnick, Gaylord Schilling, Andy Chen, Herod Trent, and Debbie Healy. We hope that community members will take several strolls during the holiday season to appreciate the festive decorations in Library Park and the children's library windows around town and on the water tower. You'll also have the opportunity to vote for your favorite house decorations as part of a Rotary contest, and links to that contest are available on the Rotary's Facebook page as well as the city's website. And finally, I encourage community members to search for the wishing tree in Library Park. Dozens of residents have left their wishes for 2021, including, I wish to hug my grandparents again, I wish for a new job, I wish that my family is safe and that COVID ends, and I wish for one more dog. We honor El Segundo's incredible resilience and unity during this challenging time and wish all of you at home a happy Hanukkah, a Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCullum. Great information. All right, next up we have Chief Donovan with COVID-19 update.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I'm going to share my screen and go through a quick PowerPoint presentation, assuming that you can see the screen now, sir.
Yes, we're good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is as of this afternoon. We've all been watching the news and seeing the dramatic increase in COVID cases. As of this afternoon, there are now 16,317,892 cases in the United States. That's an increase of one day of over 200,000. And unfortunately, we've now surpassed 300,000 deaths in the United States. California is one of the areas in the country that's seen a substantial surge, particularly in the southern region of the state. Today, we saw an additional 32,326 COVID positive cases. In LA County, we had another day with a significant number of new cases with 11,194. 186 deaths. LA County, this is an important role that we've always talked about, is the hospitalization status, and particularly ICU status. We have an additional 200 patients hospitalized within Los Angeles County, an additional 42 in the ICU, which is a dramatic increase from several weeks ago. And I can tell you, having sat on a conference call yesterday for a period of time within Los Angeles County, there were over 50 ambulances waiting to drop off patients in the emergency room that didn't have bed availability. And by law, we can't transfer a patient and leave them unattended. And so 50 ambulances were on what's referred to as wall time, which is, in my career, the largest number of ambulances waiting for ER bed to open up. So as we see COVID continue to climb, we're seeing impacts in our hospitals with the 3 S's, with staffing, supplies, and the ability for beds to open up. And I forgot what that is, I apologize. But what this is indication that COVID-19 is impacting the hospital systems, and it's really stretching the hospital systems. Here in in El Segundo, 276 cases. That's an increase of 11 from yesterday, with 72 in that 14-day period. And the 5-day average of hospitalization in Los Angeles County did drop 325 patients, but we're still seeing an average of 11,312 people on the 5-day average within the hospital. This is what's an alarming number. Right now, our ICU capacity is down to 1.7. And if you'll remember, when we were talking several months ago about the governor's new protocols, we needed that surge capacity above 15% in order to move on to the next phase. So this is a really low number, and it's not a good indicator. If you look a little bit deeper into South Bay numbers, you'll see that the Los Angeles County case rate has increased by 15. The South Bay cities has increased by 14. And El Segundo's case rate has increased by 1.7. Test positivities are coming back very high. They're testing more people, and more people are testing positive. And that test positivity index for the healthy places is up to 17 at this time. So again, these are bad indicators. Once again, this is Southern California. The ICU availability is down to 1.7. In Central California, they're at 0 right now. So they're actually having to ship patients to Northern California for healthcare. Northern California is about 15% to 18% on ICU availability. So they're able to move patients north, but logistically, that's a difficult challenge. Once again, this is just another slide that shows you the 5-day rolling average of patients and hospitalizations. What I think we need to reiterate over and over again is the importance of social separation, face covering, and following guidance that helps slow the spread of the virus. And most experts are indicating that this surge is coming from gatherings, particularly through the holiday of Thanksgiving and other activities that took place over the holiday seasons, where we saw people, out of their normal isolation and social distancing and becoming a little bit more involved with bigger crowds. And unfortunately, that's showing a pretty dramatic spread of the virus. Some of the important things that we're still focusing on here locally, the All Hazard Incident Management Team has taken on a new role. We're now doing contact tracing, and we're streamlining the COVID-19 flowchart process for our internal employees. So if we have an employee that has had a high-risk exposure, or if they indicate they may have been in close contact with somebody that was COVID positive, we are now doing an internal contact tracing. This is not taking the place of what LA County Public Health is doing, but what we're doing is taking actions that will notify other employees and taking actions to making sure that we separate, isolate, and where needed, do additional cleaning in those workplaces. Our processes are continuously being reviewed and updated as we look at our COVID-19 investigation processes. And I can assure you that employee health and safety continues to be our top priority as we continue to manage the surge, both within the community and within the city employee structure. Our staff is continuing to monitor compliance with Cal OSHA. state and county health department guidance. And we, in fact, on a regular basis, in fact, even today, we are in contact with our medical director, Dr. Cohen, to come up with the latest information. So we may see additional changes to the way we do our protocols and processes, all with the important underscoring of employee health and safety. The last thing I want to leave this group with is, I'll get up on my soapbox a little bit right now, is we saw the news that the vaccines have been rolled out. I sat on a conference call Monday morning talking about the vaccination process for the tier 1, which will be the healthcare providers in the hospitals, and will include the fire department, EMTs, paramedics, and suppression forces. We'll be partnering with the local hospital for vaccine availability for our employees. And then eventually this will be pushed out to other members of the city in terms of employees, as well as our community. We also know that we have some high risk exposure here. And by way of example, I know that Park Vista is an important facility for us, and an important location that we put considerable effort. So I've asked staff to research how we can identify an opportunity to move vaccination availability to that facility. And this is really our opportunity to the beginning of the end, if you will. And I know that there's reluctance. I've seen reports, I've heard on the news of the public's reluctance in the vaccination because it was pushed out in 10 months. And I can tell you, having talked to Dr. Cohen and having talked to other professionals and reading a lot of literature, the vaccinations were remarkably put together in exceedingly fast time. A normal vaccine takes about 3 years to sequence, and this vaccination was sequenced in about 10 months. What this indicates is the best scientists in the world, and quite frankly, biotechnology, that is one of the things that's done in our community. Biotechnology played a huge role in getting this vaccination ready for rollout, and it's safe, it's effective. Initial reports indicate up to 95% effectiveness. Most of the vaccinations are shipped cold, or all of them are shipped cold, and they require a 2-dose, one dose, and then within 21 to 28 days, a second a booster dose, and then you should have immunity to the COVID-19 virus. And I'll be encouraging folks to stay up on the campaign of vaccinations and read up on the literature. And from my professional opinion on my soapbox, I'll encourage everybody in our community to take advantage of this opportunity and get vaccinated. And with that, I'll end my report and answer any questions that you may have, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Council colleagues, any questions or comments? Doesn't look like it. Okay, thanks, Chief. Great report. Appreciate it. Okay, next up, we have a procedural motion, consideration of a motion to read all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda by title only. Would someone like to make a motion to do so?
So moved. Pimentel.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a second?
Nickel, second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, vote please.
Councilmember Giroux. Can't hear him, but I see him.
He gave a thumbs up. I think he's having an
I
audio
saw
problem.
it. Councilmember Nickel.
Aye.
Councilmember Perstek.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
Yes.
And Mayor Boyles.
Yes.
Okay, pass 5-0.
Thank you. On the consent calendar, are there any polls this evening? No. Okay, great. And let's see, do we have a motion to approve items 1 through 7?
First ticket, so moved.
Thank you. Second, anyone going?
Nickel, second.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, if we would please take a voice vote.
Certainly. Councilmember Giroux.
Yes.
Yay. Councilmember Nickel.
Aye.
Councilmember Perstek.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
Aye.
And Mayor Boyles.
Yes.
Okay, consent passes 5-0.
Thank you. We have no public hearings on to staff presentations. Item 8, ratify amendment to Administrative Order Number 2. Mr. Mitnick, who will report on this?
I believe Chief Donovan will do so.
I see Randy Collins too. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to punt to our all hazard incident management team guru. It's dark in the corner there, so.
Yeah, I apologize about the lighting.
Randy Collins, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor and Council, it's a pleasure to be with you this evening. I apologize about my lighting. I actually just moved to El Segundo, so in my new apartment, I don't have quite the lighting that I apparently need in the evening time.
Well, it's sunset, Randy.
What's that?
It's sunset. It's getting darker. It's good.
Yes, sir. What we're doing, what we're asking here is for the amendment to Administrative Order number 2. If you might recall, since the beginning of the pandemic, we've had 2 various administrative orders issued by the city. And number 2 has to do with our recreational facilities. And the first one in regards to the lakes at El Segundo Golf Course. And what we're basically doing with this particular amendment is, instead of continuously changing it as orders change from the health officer, we wanted to rearrange the language to make it so that it continues throughout the rest of the pandemic with any orders that change with the health department, so that we don't have to keep changing it time and time again based on the new orders as they've come out from the health officer. And so with that, basically it's continuing the reopening of and maintaining the opening of the lakes at El Segundo Golf Course with the fees as adhered to, or the fees that we made changes on, keeping the Fairway Cafe closed and keeping operations consistent with protocols as they are changed or amended by the health order. The second piece of the administrative order is with regards to the outdoor fitness instruction at Recreation Park. And what we want to allow is that those with a business regarding gym or fitness that want to utilize our real estate in Rec Park during the time that their facility may be closed, or maybe not a facility, but a personal fitness instructor that has a business, that they be allowed to use Rec Park to continue their business, continue receiving a paycheck, and continue to make a living. And that they will have to simply provide the proof of insurance that they need and apply for a outdoor fitness instruction permit, which they can do there at the checkout building in Rec Park with one of our park staff. And so with those are the kind of the amendments to the previous administrative order. With that, that concludes my request, pending any of your questions.
Okay. Council colleagues, any comments or questions? Don't appear to be any. Thank you, Mr. Collins. Welcome to El Segundo.
Thank you.
Certainly one of the best decisions I made is moving here. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Do we have a motion to ratify?
Perstick, so moved.
Thank you, Carol.
Pimentel, second.
Thank you, Chris. Madam Clerk, would you please take a voice vote?
Absolutely. Councilmember Giroux?
Yes.
Councilmember Nickel?
Aye.
Councilmember Perstick?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel?
Aye.
Mayor Boyles?
Yes.
Okay, ratified 5-0.
Okay, procedural note, we are moving item 10 up so that the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee can go on before we get into the item 9, which is going to be a little lengthy. So item 10 is to receive and file the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee report, including fiscal year 2019-2020 accomplishments, the workflow realignment, and fiscal year 2021 work plan, and direct the ACC to implement the 2020-2021 work plan. Mr. Mitnick, who will report on this item?
I'm going to turn it over to our Community Services Director, Melissa McCollum, to introduce the chair of that committee.
Great.
So quick thank you to all the members of the Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee for their service this year. But a special thank you to Chair Neil Van Flew, who I see there. So that's great. And he's going to make the presentation, the ACC update to you tonight. Neil?
Hello, good evening, everybody. I am going to share my screen, so give me just a second to boot up this presentation. Hopefully that is visible to everybody.
Yes.
All right. So as you heard, my name is Neil Von Flew, and I'm the current chair of the Art and Culture Advisory Committee. I'm here today to talk about the ACC's role in supporting the City Council and to present a workflow concept that will enable the ACC to determine, evaluate, and recommend projects or initiatives that benefit the residents and businesses of El Segundo. We'll start with a look at the ACC's purpose as stated in Article 2 of our bylaws. This purpose statement tasks our committee to generate and recommend innovative ways to bring added quality of life to residents and help create a rich community. To do this effectively, we need to foster clear communication and collaboration with city leadership at key stages in our process to ensure that we're on the right track. Our members are a group of trusted community creatives and supporters of the arts who've taken this purpose statement and created many opportunities for enrichment since the group's formation in 2016. We've brought forth projects that focus on key areas of interest for the city's goals and strategic plan as categorized here. Great ideas have come out of the ACC, including the Creative Economy Report, which was instrumental in showing for the first time quantifiable data on the profound positive economic contributions and creative efforts that businesses have made to our town. We've worked with city departments to make important institutions even better by creating and supporting programming and installations. We've also facilitated and taken on public art projects that beautify valuable areas of town, from small walls at the Rec Park to facilitating large projects like the Van Hammersveld mural on Grand Avenue, and perhaps most notably and successfully, the Portals to Memory mural at the library, which not only provides a beautiful addition to the library space, but also has created a positive reflection and appreciation of Indigenous communities and increased the conversation and understanding of our history and cultural context. Our members are also individual contributors to other artistic and cultural pursuits in El Segundo. We come from all walks of life, creatives, business owners, teachers, and members of some of our largest local corporations. As individuals, our members have created institutions, publications, art shows, and programming. We've worked in tandem with the city on projects like El Segundo Centennial Celebration and have contributed positively to programming for the library, El Segundo Media, and Rec and Park. All of this has brought us to one of the most positive and impactful initiatives to come from the ACC, the Cultural Development Program. The descriptions on screen now is from the purpose section of the ordinance. You're familiar with the program, so I won't go into the details, but it's worth noting that it charges the ACC with two jobs. The first is to approve public art for developers that wish to add to our city's beauty by creating on-site art. And the second, to make recommendations on what to do with the funds from developers that wish to pay the in lieu fee. Since its approval at the end of last year, it's created an avenue of funding for more of the types of projects and initiatives that I've described so far. Important creative efforts that would generate public support and bring our community together in a challenging time. As intended by the ordinance, we made budget recommendations for this newly created program in September. And through that process, we found with some dismay that we didn't seem to be as aligned as we had hoped with the council's intent for the program's allocations. In light of the cultural conversations of 2020, public health mandates, struggling businesses and institutions, we sought to address what we saw as the needs of our community, but it seemed as if our committee and leadership were on different pages regarding the recommendations and allocations. So we sought to reacquaint ourselves with the purpose and intent of our group with a new lens that the CDP has brought to our mission. In brief, we came to understand that we have so far been a group of doers, an appointed collection of compassionate residents and stakeholders in the art and culture of our city, and that we've always looked for ways to streamline this process to bring support to our community as directly as possible. Jeff Kaysen, who you may know is an ACC member and held the chair position prior to me, his works in project management and streamlining workflow, and after this budget approval process, he was the first to bring forth a framework that would improve our communication and manage expectations between our group and city leadership. In recent sessions, the committee's polished up these ideas, and we would like to present this process to you for input and adoption. The first step was in defining our scope. We realized that as a set of passionate community members, we were self-starters. In our last 4 years, many of the accomplishments I've mentioned previously were done in-house through fundraising work and donation of our time and skills. The CDP removes much of the need for that direct involvement So we started by reframing our scope to be an advisory group, not an implementation group. It seems a little silly in retrospect because advisory is in our title. But when you give a group like ours an idea that might benefit the community and the only limitation is a funding source and some work, we didn't let anything stand in the way. We've written grants, held extra meetings, asked for donations, even primed walls for murals. But again, the CDP has removed that direct need and reminded us that we are a group that works best when we ideate. So stepping back from our perceived roles as directly involved people, we could see clearly that what we do best is come up with ideas and then assess their viability. And this led us to a 4-step process, one that allows for public input as well as building a strong relationship and trust with city leadership. Our first step would be to ideate internally or collect ideas from community members and the public. And the goal here is to create a list of approximately 50 viable projects or initiatives that would benefit the city. These would include large public art pieces, programming, public beautification, events, temporary and permanent art installations, gallery shows, community outreach, and more. Our next step would be to research the viability of these selections based on the criteria listed here. How viable are these projects? What are their timelines? Who do they benefit? What are the outcomes that we can expect? And how does it address the needs of our community? Once we have an understanding of each potential project's impact and viability, we would curate that list. Using criteria such as artistic merit, feasibility, and community need, we would pare the list down to the most viable and impactful works. When we've reached a list that seems to reflect the potential of the year's CDP budget or reflects a meaningful and doable amount of work to complete, we could create a brief for each project to present to city leadership. And finally, we would advise city staff and council on each project, giving you the final say in what projects are greenlit. All of this work condenses into a yearly budget recommendation for the CDP. This workflow would allow for perspectives in our selection and recommendation process that were not utilized previously. We can select projects that meet important criteria, such as the goals in the strategic plan, or that address a particular need brought to the attention of our committee or to council. We could work with city staff to gauge how prospective projects complement the action plan worksheet, the management tool that aids staff in implementation of city goals. These metrics and other factors such as regular check-ins with you and the city manager during our evaluation process will be key in ensuring that we recommend projects and programming that the city leadership can be confident finding value in. This quote on the left is from the strategic plan and aligns with some of the core strengths of the ACC. And to continue working towards these shared values, it will also be important to take stock of our progress. So while there will be large projects that stand as a single effort, such as the city's gateways or a piece of public art, there will also be more focused projects that require evaluation and steerage on a regular basis. So we've adopted a set of key performance indicators to be used as metrics to establish impact, effectiveness, and the value of any project, creative effort, or cultural event. With these metrics as a guide, we can ensure that we adapt to the needs of the community and stay focused on ensuring that the most impactful and valuable effect for our residents and other stakeholders. In closing, the ACC is looking to adopt this process in order to better assess and recommend projects that will have a positive and lasting effect for our residents and businesses. And we appreciate any input and guidance that you might provide. Thank you.
Mr. Von Flew, very well done. Thank you very much. Great presentation. Very clear. Very clear. Love the background too. So this is a receive and file, but I think Mr. Von Flew as the chair is looking for any comments or feedback from my council colleagues. So open up the floor. Yeah, Councilman Drew.
Neil, great presentation. That was extremely well put together. Thank you very much for that. And you know, I think we've talked a little bit during the ACC meetings, and that I believe that there's a lot that committee can offer. I just think maybe the setting an expectation, having an open line of communication about what we're all looking for and trying to accomplish is really going to make this a little bit better, more of a symbiotic relationship going forward. So again, I really appreciate it. You have some very talented people in that committee, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Mayor Pro Tem. And then we'll go to you, Carol. Yeah.
Do we envision there being a regular
process update, not process update, but project update from the commission where they have, they periodically, they cast for 50 ideas, they winnow them down, they think, wait, there's 3 that we like, or there's 5 that we like, or none that we like this time. But are those, do we anticipate that happen quarterly or annually? Or I think that we are, there's some energy behind this on both the council's end, and I think certainly there's plenty of energy on the ACC side to get things moving and to come to fruition. So I don't know if there was a vision for how periodically you would bring projects to us, or if that's going to be when they arise and event driven or calendar driven.
I think that's a good question. And I think one of the things that's important to remember is that given the scale and variation of all of these projects, we're talking about things that have really long timelines and orbits and things that might need to happen very quickly, things that could respond to community needs that would be on a shorter timeline. So I don't know how feasible a regular process is. We'd be looking to you guys probably to let us know how often you want to hear. One thing I definitely heard from our committee is that we feel it's very key to have regular check-ins with you so we don't have the feeling that we had with the recommendation process where we kind of went this direction for so long and then realized that where we should have been is over here. So more check-ins were something that a lot of our committee members said would be really, really useful. And whether that's with, with Scott or with you guys, that's up to you really and your availability and how often you want to hear from us, I guess.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Councilmember Perstock.
Yeah, so thank you, Neil. It was very, very, well done presentation. And I'm just so excited that, this committee was formed close to 5 years ago, and it's really developed and grown into an amazing group. And everybody that's participated in it has done an amazing job. So I know that, the future is bright for us and that the committee is really going to help us bring arts and culture to our town. Not that it is not there already, but it will really enhance it as in the future. So thank you to your team. And I know you guys work really hard, and it's great having you as part of the committee.
I appreciate that. Thank you. They do work very hard. I'm very happy to be a part of the group.
Thank you, Councilmember Perstock. Councilmember Nickel, and then we'll go to Mayor Pro Tem right after that. Scott has his hand up. Scott, go ahead.
Mr. Von Flew, thank you so much. I think to piggyback off Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel's statement, I would prefer to hear from you, your group, more regularly than less regularly. If there is any question as to the direction you're going in, those questions can also be communicated through your liaisons, right? Whether Councilmember Giroux or myself are at the meetings. If there's something that your committee would like a answer to from our board, ask the council member that's present to take it back. And that council member can then place it on the agenda under their name to have that discussion, to have council talk about it, even if it's just hey, we can go left or we can go right. Which way would you like us to go? So that we can keep driving the ship together. Most definitely, because the last thing we want is for anyone that's a member of your committee to feel like their work was done for naught. So we do appreciate all the volunteer hours that go into it, and many of the individuals on your committee are far more passionate about the arts than I think some of us on this board. But we would I think my biggest fear is for any of them to feel that their work and time was wasted. So don't hesitate to come to us.
I appreciate that. We want to prevent that from happening as well.
Yes. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Nickel. Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
Mr. Mayor, that was just precisely my point. I don't want to reiterate. I just want to make sure that we honor the efforts and engagement of the committee by giving them regular check-ins. And if there's something that, if it's a giant statue to commemorate the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl that we're just categorically not going to do, nor should we ever, that would be something that we want to let them know from jump. So, but that is because, look, we need their time and efforts to be quite frank, because my aesthetic choices are poor. So,
thank you, sir. All right, and I think that's it. So, do we have council consensus to receive and file the report? I believe so. Yes. Okay. Thank you. And then we do need a motion directing ACC to implement the fiscal year 2020-2021 work plan. Anyone like to make that motion?
First, so moved.
Pimentel, so moved. Oh, sorry.
Okay. That's okay. So, Chris, you want to take the second on that?
Second, Pimentel.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, vote please.
Sure. Councilmember Giroux.
Yes.
Councilmember Nickel.
Aye.
Councilmember Perstuck.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
Aye.
And Mayor Boyles.
Yes.
All right, work plan is approved, 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, next up, item 9, review of water and wastewater rate studies. Direct staff to commence with Proposition 218 protest procedures regarding proposed water and sewer rates for 2020, 2021 through 2024, 2025. Also adopt a resolution establishing procedures for mailing, handling, and counting Proposition 218 ballots, and set a public hearing for February 16, 2021 to consider an ordinance increasing water and wastewater rates and fees. I see Mr. Lilio and several other people. Mr. Mitnick, who will report on the item?
Mr. Mayor, we apologize for the long agenda title there. Your Chief Financial Officer, Joe Lilio, will tee it up, and we have other staff and a consultant available, and they will be part of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Boyles, Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel, and distinguished city council members. Before we begin the presentation, I would like to provide a brief background on the Prop 218 process. This is a process that under industry best practices and financial prudence is supposed to occur every 5 years. The last time the city conducted this process was in 2014. The last time the city conducted a rate increase was in 2016 for wastewater. So it's been over 4 years. And 2019 for the water system. So almost a year and a half in the water. We do have representatives from West Basin and the city of LA for Hyperion here tonight. They will be available after the presentation if city council wishes to ask them any questions. I would now like to turn it over to Sanjay, Vice President with Ratify and the city's rate consultant to present the presentation, and he should be able to share a screen.
Thank you, Joe, President, Mayor, council members, staff, and public. I'd like to do our presentation associated with the water and wastewater rate discussion. I just want to make sure everyone can see the screen here. Maybe, Joe, you can give me a thumbs up if you can see it.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Just get this set up. Thank you. So today's agenda is to go over the study overview about how we do a rate study, then talk about the proposed rates associated with recycled water, wastewater, schedule, and next steps. A rate study at a glance, we basically look at the discussions about goals and policies. If you recall, we met with you in January of this year, talking about the goals and objectives. We got that input from you. We developed a financial model, looked at the financial needs of these two enterprises, asked ourselves what are the costs in the future that we need to anticipate, developed a model that can look at the financial conditions of these two enterprises. Then what we do is what we call cost of service, where we allocate these costs of this business model of the water and wastewater and develop rates that are proportional to the cost to provide that service. We also looked at impacts associated with these customers. Once we finish that, we're at the process now, we're in between these two dots actually, where we would go now to rate adoption. We've developed an administrative record that summarizes the logic and rationality behind the rate structure, which you have a copy of, which I encourage the public to read and look at. It is a lot of information, but it's an information that shows that there is a rationality with the rate structure and a proportionality. If the city council does decide to proceed forward, the next step would be to issue the Prop 218 notice and then conduct a public hearing. So one of the legal surroundings of rate making is Prop 218. Prop 218 says that rates need to be proportional to the service to be provided. So we need to actually look at the business model of your water and wastewater enterprise and ask ourselves, what are the cost drivers of that? What are your customers, and and how do we marry the cost of providing that service to the rates? Unfortunately, because of Prop 218, we can't have subsidies for certain groups of people who may need it financially. As we know, we're in some financial challenging times. Unfortunately, with Prop 218, our hands are very tied in that, and we're not allowed to do it. There is a procedural requirement also associated with Prop 218. There needs to be an administrative record, as I mentioned, which we have provided you. Then the next step would be issuing this 45-day noticing to all property owners regarding the public hearing. And if we do not receive a protest, and a protest is 50% of your rate of your property owners are below, then you could consider adoption of the rates. So observations, the water enterprise is healthy. It's important to know that all the revenue that comes into the water enterprise are there to meet the operating, the capital needs associated with this enterprise. Same thing with wastewater. And the water fund is healthy. We just need to do a readjustments to the rates to meet the current operational costs. Wastewater, unfortunately, is not as healthy. There is some challenges there financially. As Joe mentioned, we haven't seen a rate increase in the wastewater for some time. And the other ones that did occur were minor. They were only 2%. So there is some significant increases that do need to occur. In addition, there has been increases in costs with the city of LA associated with the treatment costs. Based on the bills that we look at the invoices from fiscal year 2019 to the fiscal year 21, that's increased by 91%. So that's a $24 cost, and that's the cost to treat the water, the wastewater, excuse me. And so we need to redesign the rates to reflect this new current operational practice. So now what I want to do is talk about the recycled system. And then after that, I'll talk about the water system and then the wastewater system. Recycling is only a small segment of your customers. Basically, the recycled water is purchased from West Basin Municipal Water District. They operate the non-potable system. It's a separate system than the potable system, and it only serves parks, golf course, Chevron, and other small sites. The city owns these meters and does the billing and collection. And the cost of recycling is really just the West Basin cost, plus this surcharge, plus the meter costs. What we're recommending is that all customers that have a meter still pay the same meter as the potable, but the surcharge is only applied to Chevron. Now that's a contract that you have with Chevron. And that surcharge should increase this at the same rate as the potable increase. Now, the nice thing about this surcharge is that it is falls outside of Prop 218 because it's a contract. And so we can use this source of revenue to help us with affordability. And that's what we're doing. You'll see in the rates where we're pegging that for tier 1 indoor needs so that we have that affordability there. But we are recommending no surcharge for city and non-city customers except for Chevron. Now let's go into water and the discussion associated with that. The city is 100% dependent on West Basin for its imported water. The city does not produce or treat water. The city just operates the potable system, the distribution system of that. Chevron uses 50% of the purchased water. This shows basically the cost breakdown. And the main thing to note is these two items right here, the purchased water, potable water, the purchase of reclaimed water, both of these from West Basin. As you can see over here with the percentages, that's basically 77% of all the cost is from West Basin. That's a third party cost. This 32% cost is, the 23% cost, excuse me, is only your cost, which is the personnel and capital costs. So as I mentioned, the water enterprise is in good financial shape. What we're recommending is just a realignment of the rate structure for this March. Given Prop 218, we want to make sure the rates reflect the cost of providing that service. And then what we're recommending is a 3% increase in the following years. And that's mainly to deal with the imported or wholesale cost increase that West Basin gets from Metropolitan Water District. Now there's three components of the fixed charge. There's three components of the rate structure, excuse me. There's a fixed charge, which covers some of the fixed costs of the water supply, cost of maintenance of the meters, customer service. There's we're redesigning the tier widths to align with customer patterns of use of how they use the system, and then the commodity rates. What we've done is we actually look at the water use patterns of each of the residential customers. Basically, the average winter use is 9 CCF. The CCF is 100 cubic feet, and one of that equals 748 gallons. So 9 is a reasonable amount, and it's actually a very standard number that we use when we do our rate making for indoor needs. And then 10 to 13 is your outdoor needs. Again, that's based on the data. We actually looked at your data. Then anything above that would be tier 3. Non-residential Chevron, we're recommending that to be uniform. So through the cost of service analysis, we actually get the cost of purchasing water from West Basin. We look at the cost of delivering that water. We look at the cost of additional facilities to meet peak demand, peak hour, and we take into account other sources of revenue. So there is a logic and rationality with these rate structure. And as I mentioned, the administrative record details that, and I encourage people to look at that for reference. So these are the proposed rates right here. These would be the rates that would be, right now, City Council is not looking at adopting, they're just looking at whether to issue the Prop 218 notice. But the Prop 218 notice would have these rates April 1st for these ones, and these are the fixed charge based on meter size, and then the following 5-year schedule. Larger the meter, more instantaneous capacity you have of the system, and that's larger costs you should pay. These are the commodity charges, as I mentioned, tier 1, 2, and 3 associated with that. Again, the rate schedule, non-residential, and Chevron. So what does this mean to me as a customer? How does this apply to me, to my peers within the neighboring cities of the Bay Area? And so that's what we've done. We did a survey. So what we're looking at is a monthly water survey of 5/8. 5/8 is the typical residential customer. That's the meter size that you have. We're looking at 10, that's the average use throughout the year. This is what the current bill, it's $40.15. The proposed would go up to $49.57. So it is an increase. I'll be the first to admit that. But as you'll note, it's still the lowest rate among all your peers here, among Hermosa, Inglewood, Cal America, Manhattan Beach, Lomita, etc. So it's still, you're doing an excellent job in running a system that's efficient, given that, as I said, 77% of your cost is third-party costs. So let's go over to wastewater. So wastewater is a little bit, unfortunate, a little bit more complicated to explain. First, the city operates and maintains a wastewater collection system. So that's easy, okay. Now the wastewater treatment, though, is divided between east and west. So the east side of PCH is served by the county, and the county directly bills those customers on the property roll. Now, the west side of PCH is served by the city of LA, and the city of LA charges the city of El Segundo directly for that treatment cost. So right now what I have here is a map that sort of just visually shows that. So the city, this part of here, the county, this is all non-residential, commercial. This is basically charged on the property roll. So they have a different rate. These groups of customers, which are mainly residential, are treatment cost is billed, El Segundo is billed by the city for that, and then El Segundo will need to incorporate that in the rate structure. So we take that into account, that cost differentiation. So we have the budget component associated with that. This $2.7 million is from the city of LA's treatment costs. As you can see, it's 52% of the cost of the budget. So as I mentioned, the city has not seen an increase since 2016. So it's been over 4 years, and the prior rate increases, the two prior before 2016 was 2%. So first, we haven't seen a significant increase. Second, as I mentioned, the Hyperion treatment cost has increased significantly in the last several years. And because of that, and then also projections of future costs, we're seeing that the O&M costs will be increasing around 6% a year. And this right here is a visual graphic that shows you the ending fund balance of this enterprise. This is the target reserve balance that we would like to have. The importance of having reserves is that in case something goes wrong, there's a lot of assets here, a lot of fixed costs here in the ground, and you want to have sufficient amount of revenue or reserves so that if something goes wrong, you can quickly fix it and we don't have to increase the rate substantially. So it's just good financial prudence to have it. Now, as you can see here, the ending balances, we get negative here in 2022, and then it's very significant in the out years. So without rate increases, that means that the wastewater enterprise would have to borrow money or basically take money from the general fund. It wouldn't be self-sufficient.
And
So-
Sanjay, I'm sorry, could I just add one
Yes,
thing?
please.
So the wastewater fund, you can see in 2020, it's below the target reserve level. So the city has been deficit spending in the wastewater fund for several years now. And if we continue that, you'll see that it actually becomes negative fund balance, which is not the way it should be run financially. So.
Thank you. So our proposal is to, and you know, we understand that we are in challenging times here, as we all know, and there's a balancing act here. So what we're recommending is that we do a 9% increase to smooth this out as much as possible, and then 9.5 in the following years. This will smooth out the impact of the city of LA. It still will achieve the reserve target by 2025. And get us into a healthy position with this wastewater enterprise. We are also recommending some changes in the rate structure just to deal with some nuances that we've noticed. So single family, we're suggesting that be a flat rate based on 9 CCF. Again, that's that indoor need, as I mentioned, on the water side, so nice and mirrors that. Everyone else, including multifamily, will be charged a flat rate with a minimum of 9, so same with single family. But if they use more than 9, then they're charged a CCF charge above that. We're also taking into account that different customers have different strength factors that goes in. And so we're creating 3 customer class: residential, commercial, and industrial. We know also accessory dwelling units, ADUs, are coming more and more common in your service area. And so we also want to develop a new charge to address that. This will assume a flow of 4 HCF instead of 9, because it's a smaller family, 2 people basically. This would be addition to a single family rate. They wouldn't pay the customer service charge because it's already embodied in the single family rate. It'll be just the additional 4 HCF of flows. So based on these revenue adjustments, as we call them in the industry, we get into a position where we're healthy by 2025. And then we meet the target. So what does that mean in the rates? So these are the rate schedule here, where we have the single family, SFR is single family, MFR is multifamily. Then, as I mentioned, we have the institutional west, commercial west, and then non-residential east. That's the group of customers, as I mentioned before, who are not billed for its wastewater treatment plant from the city. They're billed by the county on the property roll. So we don't want to double charge them. So we take that into account. And you can see the difference between this rate and this rate. Basically, $24 is associated with just the treatment costs of this rate right over here. And then we have the additional cost for the ADUs. We also have the flow requirement if they go above 9. As I mentioned, single family doesn't have this charge. They just have a flat rate. That's what it is. The other customers do have that if they go above the 9 CCF. So again, there's a change in this rate structure. What does this mean to
Sanjay, we lost you.
Joe, do you want to pick it up?
Sure. So for the wastewater charge that we're looking at here, these are this is above 9 CCF. So for single family residents, there will be no additional charge for usage above 9 CCF. If we can go. I'm not sure what's happening here.
I don't think Sanjay knows he's locked up and he's going through the presentation.
And this is the meat of it right here for the typical family. Oh.
I think you're back. Sanjay, you back?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you might need to go back a couple slides.
Okay, let me go back. I'm sorry about that. My internet seemed a little bit.
We lost you at 9 HCF, 3 slides back.
There you go.
Is this good? This slide right here?
Yeah, that one. Sorry, 9 CCF. Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. My apologies. As I said, my internet just dropped. So what this graph shows you is that if you use above 9, what are the incremental costs associated with that? And for single family, that doesn't apply, it only applies to these other customers. Next, I want to show what does this mean to your customers now? And so this is a single family bill. For El Segundo, it's $30.53. Currently, with the proposed change, it'll be $39.07. As you can see, you're still within the pack. Now, I know that these individuals will be doing a rate study shortly, and so they will be seeing increases in the future too. Next, what I want to show you is the total combined bill. For the city of El Segundo, it's currently $70.68. With the proposed change, it would be $88.64. You still be lower than Manhattan Beach. So the schedule here is, as I mentioned, we met with you on January 1st to discuss the goals and objectives of the rate study. We presented draft results on August 18th. We got your inputs. We updated that based on your inputs. Today we're here presenting you the final report as and receiving authorization to proceed with the Prop 218 notice. This would set the stage for the public hearing, which will be February 16th, where City Council considered rate adoption. If City Council does adopt those rates, it will be implemented April 1st. That I may answer. If not, we can.
Yes, I'm sure we're going to have questions. Would you mind closing your presentation so I can see everyone in gallery? And then if we have to open it up again, we can. Thank you, sir. Okay, colleagues, any questions or comments either for the presenter, or would now be the appropriate time to ask the City of LA, Hyperion, and also West Basin questions? Joe? Would now be the appropriate time to ask the representative. Yes. Okay, great.
Yeah,
so,
any questions you have on the presentation, both Elias, the Public Work Director, and myself are also here to address those questions as well.
Okay, I saw Councilmember Giroux come off mute, so Lance.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions, so I don't want to take up everybody's time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask I got like one for the city right now and one for Hyperion and West Basin, and then I'll open it up to everyone else. And if my questions don't get asked, I'll come back at the end. I just don't want to take up everybody's time. One question I have for staff, Joe, what is the percentage of the total bill that we get now as residents, single family, that it encompasses the like the city charge, our city administrative fee?
Yeah, so for water, it's going to be approximately, about 14 and a half.
Just approximate.
About 20%.
So 20% of the total bill is our personal city fee, or administrative fees?
For the water, yes.
Water, okay. And that's, of course, because, look, we don't own West Basin, we don't own Hyperion, but we do own an infrastructure that has to be maintained in the city.
That right? Is correct. So the water pipelines, staff costs.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And for wastewater, it's a little bit higher. The admin cost is approximately 45%.
Gotcha. Okay. Is someone here from Hyperion or LA City that I can address on this one, or if they're listening in?
Yeah, there was someone here earlier. I know that, Susan, I think, or maybe not.
This is Dale going from Los Angeles. I can answer some questions.
I'm also moving some. Is it Tim Dafta from Hyperion?
Tim DeFeta is the plant manager.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I just want to address this one to you guys. Look, in my private business world, I don't know any business in the world who can get away with increasing rates for current established service or product by 91%. Only government agencies and monopolies can pull something like that off because competition is essentially wiped out of the equation. So with that in mind, what exactly is driving these substantial cost increases?
Well, first of all, it isn't clear to me what period of time the 91% covers. Can you tell me that?
Elias, can you clarify that, or Joe? I thought it was from 2017 to 2021 is what I recall. Is that the cost?
That's what it said in the, that's what it said in the presentation.
Right, that is correct.
Well, it is driven in large measure by cost increases with the capital program, as well as the mix of capital projects that may affect El Segundo versus other cities in the city of Los Angeles. It depends on the strength of El Segundo versus the flow of El Segundo. So there's lots of things that go into it. I can't really tell you exactly what the 91% covers.
I think it might be important for us, meaning council, to be able to explain that in detail to our residents, because I can guarantee you it's going to come up. I know from my inbox already, it's already coming up. So if there's something that you can do at some point in time to maybe line item that, I think it would be very helpful for us.
Yes, we can do that. Now, one thing you need to know is that the bills are based on estimated costs, which is based on our budgeted capital program. And so in fact, the cost may not be, and then they're reconciled later on to reflect actual costs. And it may well be that the costs are reduced. One thing that we have currently are dealing with is the impact of the COVID pandemic on our capital program. So we have cut back our capital program from about $320 million to $387 million this year, as well as cut back for next year. So, so it's likely that the reconciliation bill in the past will reflect a credit given back to El Segundo.
When would that? Can I just interject? Yeah, when would that reconciliation take place, Dan? When could we expect that?
Well, it will be the bills are after the end of this fiscal year, so the end of 2021 fiscal year. So sometime during the following year, you'll get the credit back.
Okay, and then Joe or Elias, if we were significantly, I guess if we significantly overestimated the cost that we'd be getting, pass-through costs from Hyperion, what would we do in that situation with our residents and commercial customers?
So the rate structure that's being proposed, Mayor, that's the maximum that we're saying that the city would be able to increase it. If for some reason the costs decreased per our estimates, and we would not need to, let's say down the road, go with a 9.5% increase, then we can reduce that. However, the wastewater fund is such in a deficit position right now, even with City of LA Hyperion maybe giving a credit with next year to year after that, we will still need to move forward with the rate increases, at least for the first several years. Once we get to our reserve level, if the wastewater fund it reaches that level prior to, we're saying we're not going to get there to year 5. If we get there by year 3 or year 4, then we would need to maybe reevaluate those rate increases in the future years.
And then to Lance's question earlier, I know several of us asked that same question, probably Lance included, of Hyperion months back about where is the justification for the 91% increase over the last 4 years. Have we gotten, Joe or Elias, anything tangible from Hyperion in that regard up until this point?
Yes, I have had some conversations, and some of that is due to the fact, as was mentioned, to the ongoing CIP projects that Hyperion has going. Some of them has to do with compliance with the regulations regarding what they have to comply with, and some of that relates to the additional effluent that has been registered by the meters. So this is basically there are three combinations, and the combination of the three that adds up, it comes up to that 91%. And as it was mentioned, this is the projection. So there's a chance that for example, the water consumption may be lower with pandemic that we have. They have certainly cut down on their CIP programs, so that may also affect. What as Joe just indicated, these rates are the worst scenario. So if going forward things do not happen like what was expected, then we either would look at the rates again and adjust them as we go forward, and that's going to happen.
Okay, Elias, thanks for that. I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem who had a question. Before I do, I would just like to earmark the calendar a year from now to revisit that rates once we get the reconciliation or the end of the fiscal year, whenever that comes, Joe, so that we can actually see what transpired versus what the forecast was coming from Hyperion, given how significant this increase is.
Absolutely. And Sanjay, can you put the presentation back up on the slide that shows the wastewater fund balance?
Yeah, Joe, I heard you loud and clear. I remember the deficit clearly. I know, I think we all get that part. It's just also if they're significantly off what their forecast was, we anticipate that to happen in subsequent years.
Right.
Then maybe we don't need to implement the same rate increases we're anticipating for our residents going forward.
That would be correct, Mayor. And that's something that, we can, before the rate increase would take effect. So moving forward, it's proposed to be each January 1. We can maybe do a presentation to council in November showing, here's where the fund balance is with the rate increase. Here's where it will be. Here's where we're supposed to be. And then that could justify to council whether we should continue with what was approved or not.
Okay, thanks, sir. Mayor Pro Tem.
Much like Lance, I have a battery of questions, so I'll try and parse them out. But I think to echo his concerns, but this will go to a 218 ballot. So it is incumbent on us to be very clear what our reason and rationale is. Otherwise, the general fund is going to get stuck with this bill if we cannot articulate this to our residents, who will be in front of City Hall with pitchforks and torches over a 91% increase on this piece. So to articulate that clearly, if there's a portion of this that is tied to effluent, is it a more significant or greater effluent flow, or worse quality effluent effluent that's being regulated differently that is driving that piece? And then commensurate to that, if there is this capital improvement program that is such a drastic capital improvement program, is the rationale behind that regulatory change, so we need new equipment, or is it unbudgeted or previously unbudgeted or deferred maintenance that is bringing that forward? Because these are things that we are going to need to be able to speak clearly about and defend this. Otherwise, this will be defeated. So that's a question. If you could describe those, I know that you don't have those line items, but in concept, when $350 million of capital improvements were budgeted for, what's the genesis of that so suddenly? Is that deferred maintenance and a regulatory change? And then perhaps for Tim, if he can speak to the effluent speculation on what's driving those cost changes.
Any takers to Mayor Pro Tem's questions?
Dale, you want to take the overall system cost, and then I can take specific projects at the plant?
Okay. But first, I'd like to note that your costs aren't just Hyperion costs; they're shares of system-wide LA costs. So something that happens, say, in the San Fernando Valley also affects. Another thing I'd like to point out is that you pay minimal conveyance system costs, and the city is incurring a lot of costs of repairing its North Outfall sewer. But because El Segundo is so close to the Hyperion plant, it pays a minimal part of that cost. So in terms of the increased like I said, I'm not sure where the 91% comes from really, because we're currently spending, last year we spent about $270 million, something like that. And which was about 25% less or 20% less than our budget. And this year we're expecting to spend, we'll probably spend a similar amount. So I really do need to find out where you get this 91% figure, because it isn't clear to me that it's the capital program. Likewise, our operation and maintenance program is increasing by inflation, basically, so that's a lot less than that. And I think it has probably to do with the fact that you're comparing previous actual costs with something that was budgeted, and we tend to budget conservatively. So you're probably comparing something that actually happened several years ago with an estimated cost, which is based on a budget. That may be part of it. Other than that, I'm not really sure where the 91% comes from.
Okay, Tim, can you address it? Because if not, I think what I'm hearing the council say is we would definitely like a report back, an analysis of where the expense is coming from. Because to Mayor Pro Tem's point and to Councilmember Giroux's point, we have to be able to clearly communicate the rationale and the basis for this significant increase to our residents and our commercial customers, or we will incur this as part of the general fund. And so anything you can do to help us understand that. And while I have you, is Measure W affecting this at all? Are there any capital improvement projects?
No, Measure W is a stormwater issue or a watershed protection issue.
But which one is the one where Hyperion is now going to, I thought it was Hyperion was going to capture all the runoff?
That's LA County Sanitation.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Thanks. Okay. All right. But so
even if it were LA watershed protection, that is paid in LA at least. It's paid from watershed protection funds, not the wastewater funds.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Lance. We'll see if your questions get addressed. We're going to have Councilmember Nickel and Councilmember Burstick if she has a question or comment too. Scott, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess this is another question for Hyperion, but Joe, I'd just like you to have your ears perked up for this as well. As we've seen tonight in our presentation, we're doing a study on our enterprise fund, and we can see where, at our current rate and what is budgeted, where we're going to have a deficit. And so we're trying to create these rate increases that go up 9% the first 2 years, 9.5% the second 3, in order to get us at a place where our reserves are healthy. Do you guys at Hyperion have any type of reserve study that we can go back to from 5, 7, 10 years ago to show that, yes, you have reserves and it's going to be healthy? Or is this just a case of mismanagement from 5, 10, 7 years ago, something along those lines, that then comes up and says, hey, we didn't take care of this in time, we didn't manage this, we can't tier it up, we have to jump it 91% over the course of 3 years?
I think that this is Dale again. Our reserves, I think, are no worse than they were, or no better than they were back then. We always had reserves, cash reserves. They've dipped a little bit because of this COVID, but they're recovering. And in terms of, I think you're getting at deferred maintenance, right? Or maybe replacements due to perceived inadequate investment in the past. 10 years ago, we increased our rates at about 6% a year and have been for the last 10 years. And that was intended to take care of rehabs and replacements of assets. And we've been doing that over the past 10 years at a pretty steady rate. I can't say that there was In the past, there was a lot of disinvestment that caused us to require more investment now.
It just, I think, to the entire sentiment of this council is that we just want to understand how something, to Mr. Giroux's point, you know, either this is a monopoly or, you know, public government that can raise the rates by 91%. It's just, we do our best to tier them up slowly so that people can learn to weather the storm. But this is the type of thing, as we have somewhat of a marriage here that there is no divorce from. So we need to figure out how, moving forward, councils that come long after us do not find themselves in this same position. So getting that information that the mayor and my fellow council members have asked for would be extremely helpful for us to be able to explain to our constituents where this is all coming from.
So as Council Member Nichols, we hear you loud and clear. I think the issue is we need to get a better, as Dale has mentioned, we need to just get a better sense on where that 91% is coming from. And so it's a little difficult for us to answer that question without seeing how you got to that 91%. So I would suggest that if you can share, your consultants and your staff can share with us in terms of how you got to that 91%, and then we'll provide the adequate answers to address your concerns in terms of how we see things from our perspective, why we do the things that we do. A lot of the capital programs, as you, for those of you that have been at Hyperion, and this, like Dale mentioned, the cost is not just for Hyperion, but there's an entire cost for the, it's a shared system cost. And so we do part of that capital planning, which we look at the assets that we have, make sure that they are maintained adequately, and their time when the cycle comes around where things need to be replaced. So like, for example, Hyperion, even though we've been maintaining things over a period of time, certain equipment have certain useful life. And a lot of the original equipment were put during the full secondaries in the 80s and 90s. And over time, we've been going through the gradual process of renewal. But the process is planned, and it's such a way that it's made in such a way that there's no major shock to the system. So the CIP is almost constant or within a certain range where we're not accelerating things in such a manner that there's a shock in the system. So to make things short, I'd say once we get the data from you and our financial management folks look at it, we should be able to basically provide you with adequate response.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I could address that, where we got it from.
Councilmember Nichol, yeah, you were speaking. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, I think to myself, it may not be the two gentlemen we have before us from Hyperion that voted to raise rates, but at some point there has to be some historical information as to when rates were increased and on what scale and for what reason, and whether that was a City of LA council vote or wastewater board council vote. I don't know who makes those decisions, but that decision was made at some point. I mean, based upon the information that our staff and our consultant has shown us on our rate versus City of LA rate, it appears that City of LA residents are paying an extremely high rate for their water and wastewater. I'm curious as to when those rates went up, and I would believe that those rates would also fall under the 218 protest ballot law. But yeah, I think that having some historical information where this came from would be very helpful to try to explain it to our residents so they don't, to Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel's point, successively protest this down and put it on the general fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Let's see. All right, Councilmember Perstock, yeah, please.
Yeah, so Dale mentioned that they had a 6% rate increase consecutively for the last few years, and we haven't had a rate increase since 2016. Is that part of the problem, that they've been increasing the rates, but we have not? you know, that could be a compounding issue there, is part why the 91% all of a sudden is here. But I definitely think we need to have the information to move forward, because we really need to have all the facts before we make any decisions.
Thank you, Councilmember Perstock. Is that part of the issue, Joe? Is that they absorbed 6% a year annual increases and we did not? Or is that part of the problem?
That's going to be part of the issue, that we have not increased wastewater rates since 2016. And in 2015 and 16, it was only increased by 2%. So since, if we go back to 2015, there's only been a 4% increase in the wastewater. And then as far as where the dollar amounts are coming from, it comes from the direct billing City of LA sends us on an annual basis. In 2018, the City of LA billed us $1.88 million. And this is an annual bill. And we pay it quarterly, but that's the annual bill. And for the current year, it's $2.8 million. So it's over almost $1 million increase since 2018. So that's where the information is coming from, is the direct bill that we receive from the City of LA.
But did we not have them? Did we not investigate that bill to see if that was accurate? I mean, at the time that the bill came in, to see why the huge jump, like what caused that huge jump in the billing?
Yes, and that's something that both Elias and I have reached out and been working with the City of LA on. Elias could probably answer that a little better than I. He's been working on it more diligently.
So basically, those numbers, as was mentioned earlier, are historically are in the files, and based on those historic numbers, the City of LA predicts a certain effluent, a certain discharge that will be sent to Hyperion for treatment. So one of the things that we have done internally is we have tried to see if there might be something or an issue with our meters. So we have and we are in process of calibration of our flow meters. I think that perhaps is part of that. The other part is I need to double check that, but a lot of the time what they do is once the flow is received, the information from the flow meters are received by the City of LA. They use those and they predict what would be the flow the next few years to come. So if the flow is not very accurate, then obviously they are taking a number which is not very accurate and they're using it for projection for the future. So that could also be part of that. But what, as was indicated, you know, these are the billings we get with City of LA. We are going to share with them, and we're going to share with the City of LA results of our flow calibration, flow meters as well, and hopefully we'll be able to come back and explain further about how these numbers were made and the history behind it, and we'll be able to do that.
So,
okay, Councilor Perstock.
So it seems like this conversation is a little bit premature in that we don't have all the information of why the bill went up so drastically year over year. So, you know, for me, I'd like to see, I think it's good that we've done the research and the, you know, the pre-work to determine, you know, to move forward. But I think for us to make any type of decisions, this conversation is a bit premature, and that we really need to understand and get to the bottom of why that bill went up significantly. And if it's a miscalculation, if it's because it's our output, we have some of our pipes aren't working properly. I think we really need to get to the bottom of that rate increase, or that bill increase year over year.
Thanks, Councilor Perstock. Yeah, Councilor Giroux.
So I just want to kind of piggyback a little bit off of Councilmember Nichols' statement. Actually, he mentioned about Prop 218, protest ballots. So it's my understanding that both West Basin and Hyperion are considered wholesalers. Am I correct on that? So as such, as a wholesaler, you're not actually subject to Prop 218 protest ballots. Is that accurate? Yes, no, yes. Go ahead, Scott.
You're on mute, Scott.
I apologize. With respect to the cities of El Segundo, where we're a customer of theirs, that is correct. But I believe they are subject to it for the city of LA customers because they're part of the city of Los Angeles. But
city of LA is not going to protest a 91% rate increase on El Segundo. So essentially, for your customers, there's no way to protest it. Because since you can essentially raise rates and pass costs on to the cities without really any fear of retribution or loss of business, what's to keep this from continuing to happen? Because essentially what I'm seeing is your capital improvement costs are just kind of being passed on to the cities that you do business with. So eventually there'll be a recoup. So I'm just struggling with the dynamic of this, and I just don't see how this ever stops.
Who would like to address Councilmember Giroux's point?
Well, this is Dale again. We pass on the costs that are incurred in the system to our contract agencies. There's no link between the city of LA's internal rates and the bills we send to El Segundo. Basically, it's based on costs. So, if the city of LA raises its rates by 6.5% a year, or 6% a year, then it has no effect on bills because your bill is based entirely on our costs.
Okay, so then again, I guess we're all still struggling with how that particular thing cycles up to the cost that we're talking about, because 5% cost, 6% cost, you can kind of talk through that. What we're facing is not something you can talk through. So we're really struggling to figure that out, and we're supposed to be making some decisions tonight that we simply cannot make because we lack the data to back up what we're asking for.
I think what we need to do is take a look at that 91%. If that is based on the increase in the bills, and if the flows from El Segundo to Hyperion went up, that might be a big part of the reason.
There's a lot of might, and maybe we could have. I think in a situation like this, we need to be a little bit more exacting, or as exacting as we can be. I mean, look, I know I'm not, bringing up anything nobody knows, but we're in the midst of one of the worst economic downturns in the country's history in an unprecedented pandemic, and we're jacking rates up by double. That's a problem in any situation, but particularly right now. And I still can't even talk right now and justify it to anybody who would ask me, other than, well, that's just kind of what we're being saddled with. So
Councilor Giroux, why don't we ask Joe, how would it affect your timeline if we decided to punt on this till the next meeting in January?
It should be January 19th. So it would push everything out by 1 month.
Because we were talking about April implementation, right?
Right. So then it would become May 1st implementation.
I get the sense council would like to get clarity around this 91% increase before moving forward. I don't think there's consensus to move forward here. Am I right there, council?
Well, I guess my question is, and it's my first time through this, so please excuse my ignorance a little bit, is that I'm assuming that if we're going to put a Prop 218 ballot out right now, we have to spell out exactly what we're asking for. Am I correct on that?
Look, the 2% pay raises barely passed, and that was 2%. I mean, we still deal with an electorate that is not clear that we cannot use the water funds to build skate parks. I mean, there is such grand suspicion around any increase in any capital improvement program that I think we have to be clear. But I think that also, and Joe, maybe the city attorney question, we're up against a hard and fast deadline, I believe, to get these rates in legal compliance. Is that accurate?
Well, to Councilmember Giroux's question first, the rate that the city of LA charges to the city of El Segundo, while very important, and I can understand why the council wants to get an explanation of it, it's a pass-through cost that the city receives and passes through to the residents. So it doesn't have to legally justify that cost because it's a pass-through cost. Now, I understand practically that you want some justification or explanation to provide to the El Segundo customers. That's a policy issue, but legally that's under Prop 218. It's not El Segundo's, doesn't have an obligation to justify what the city of LA is charging the city of El Segundo. Now, with regard to the second question, which is perhaps more of an Elias question, is does the city of El Segundo, there's no deadline as far as a legal deadline to increase rates, but to keep the city's system properly maintained and to not have issues which, for instance, if the wastewater system in particular has issues that maintenance issues or repair issues, any sort of spill of wastewater can be very problematic with the Regional Water Quality Control Board, et cetera. And so having the funds on hand and the ability to fix those kind of problems is very important, but that would be better addressed by Elias.
Let's go to, I think Joe wants to address the deficit that's ahead of us. I see him pulling up a slide. Mr. Lilio, did you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I do. I do want to point out the slide right here showing 2020, which is where we're at right now. In fact, it was 2019, 2020. So this was September 30th, 2020. We're at half where we should be as a fund balance. So the dollar amount that we're talking about, this increase from City of LA, that's money that's already gone out the door. We've already paid it. And without increasing rates, we are going to continue to have this deficit spending. Now, I don't know if Sanjay, if you can tell us by punting this by an additional month, what the lost revenue is from that particular time frame.
Mr. Lilio, before you go to Sanjay, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
If we slid this slide back and you showed 2010 to 2020, where did that red line slowly climb, or was there a jump and then a new plateau? And I ask that question because if we go to our populace and we say, here's the new cost, and the reason why is because you've essentially been paying half of what you should have been paying for the last decade. And this is why there's a jump now. You know, Hyperion didn't raise their rates in time. They jumped them on us. We were slow to react. Here it is. You've been saving money. Now we got to catch up. But I'm curious to know, were we in line and everything was good, and then it jumped drastically from Hyperion and now we're chasing our tail?
So it from the last rate study, from what I recall, we were in a well-funded position in 2014 in wastewater. And I think the decision was made because in 2014, wastewater had sufficient funds, and there was this increase, 5% increase each year on the water system, the water fund, that was being assessed on ratepayers, that the decision was made that we're only going to do a 2% increase for 15 and 16 and allow the fund balance to be depleted a little bit. And next time they do the rate study, they can address the difference then. Now, however, what happened, I think in 2016 through now, the rates, the fees that the city has been paying to the city of LA were much higher than what we anticipated back in 2014.
And now if that rate is based upon flow, did we start flushing the toilet a tremendous more at a much higher rate than we did in 2015? Or are they just charging us a lot more pure per flow? I mean, I hate to dumb it down like that.
That's a component of the rate structure from what I understand, but also the capital. So I'm sure the capital has increased from where it was in 2014 to now. That's probably another component of it as well. And I don't know if anybody else can opine on that, Elias or anybody from City of LA.
Well, since we're talking about potentially bringing this back to discuss again, I would just love to see this graph going back to 2010 to 2020.
Yeah.
Just a simple diagram. Thank you.
I would like to propose, well, Mark, I'd like to ask you, Mr. Hensley, can't we go forward with directing staff to begin the process of implementing the Prop 218? Because we still have to have a public hearing on the rates. Isn't that correct? That would be subsequent to this?
Yes, the action that's in front of you tonight is to start the process in motion where the notices of the proposed potential increases, that is the envelope in which the council could increase the rates, not necessarily what you will do, but what you could do in the public hearing after the conclusion of the public hearing. And if there's not a majority protest, then you can increase up to those amounts, but you don't have to go to that limit, if you will. And so the process tonight is to give the authority of staff to send out those notices and start the process, and then the public hearing will occur in February.
Can you, Mark, can you be more specific in what language would be on the notice that gets mailed out?
It has a proposed rate schedule for both the water and wastewater rates, much like you saw this evening with what the proposed rates will be for the next 5 years, with the breakdown of how those are calculated, meter size, on the water size, meter size and usage, on the wastewater side, the components you saw. So the notices will contain that information for the customer so they can see what the potential maximum increase will be per year for those years.
Are we at liberty to detail the extent, why our rates are going up? For example, big increase from Hyperion, 91%, and that the council is still evaluating, staff and council are still evaluating the rationale for the rates. Are we allowed to do that in that same notice?
Well, the notice refers back to a rate study that Ratify has put together, and that will be, the customers will have a ability to either see a hard copy of that at various locations or to go online and take a look at it. And we could put a statement in there to that hyperlink that there'll be additional information made available about these City of Los Angeles costs. Now, I don't know how quickly that will occur. When you look at this process, which will start, the notices will go out towards the end of December. So people may not, depending on how quickly that information can be put together and then put up online with the information as far as the city's component of those rates, how much time you'll have to do that. I'll have to let Joe and Sanjay speak to that. But yes, you could put up additional information later and we could note that that's going to occur.
Okay. Council comments on that suggestion? So the idea before us is, do we continue with the procedure tonight or do we wait altogether till mid-January when we have clarity around the increase from Hyperion?
I guess, Mr. Mayor, my concern would be that if we're throwing out basically that, here's what the maximum is going to be or what the rate is that we're talking about, does it get confusing? But if we're able to kind of change the language a little bit to explain, I think there's nothing wrong with getting the process started, because in the end, we're not agreeing on this until at some point in the future.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Councilmember Giroux. Anyone else? Yeah, Councilmember Perstock.
I just keep going back to Joe. You indicated the admin component to Scott Nichols' question about the cost of the administration component of the bill. And you had said that it's 45% for wastewater versus the 20% for the other. I'm still struggling with that percentage. Why 45%? And why is it so much greater? Could you just explain that?
Sure. Let me bring up the slide again, and that will help, I believe.
And then, Mr. Mitnick, I know you had your hand up or indicating you wanted to speak. Did you want to say something now or later?
I'll wait for after Joe, if that's okay.
Okay. Yep.
So this is the water fund. You can see about 77% is the purchase of water. And then the rest would be personnel, O&M, and then capital. And so for the city side is the personnel, ops, the O&M, and the capital.
So Joe, to clarify on the personnel side of that, the lion's share of that is the staff that is distributing the water and working on the pipes and that type of thing. A small percentage of that is administration.
Correct. And then for the wastewater, this is the wastewater.
And again, this, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's not 45%. On the wastewater side, the city is more involved in the collection process of the sewage, and we then convey it over to Hyperion. And of that personnel, the vast majority of that is for the workers. The administration is a small percentage of that.
Right. And if I may add to that, if you don't mind, the cost of the maintenance and operation of the sanitary sewer is higher than water, because a lot of our pipes that are made out of clay, and it goes back to the age, we are constantly having to maintain those and replacing them. So the high cost of operation is due to the fact that the maintenance of those pipes and upkeep of them and replacing them has been more significant than water lines, and that's with every city, not just us. Also, the lift stations we have, and the operation of the lift stations, and the fact that those pumps have to be in operation all the time at a very good condition, and the compliance with a lot of regulations and upkeep of the lift stations to withstand the criteria that we have to comply with. That also adds to the cost of the maintenance of the system. So the sanitary sewer collection system is almost, for most cities, almost is twice as much as the cost of the distribution of the water system.
So it would be helpful if we could see this slide with the previous year's cost of personnel operations and then 2016. So we can see the increase because basically the increase here is in the treatment at 2.7 million, correct, Joe? Like that's where the 91% I'm assuming is coming from.
I presume that the 91% is not only the treatment, but is also based on the projected flows. Projected flows, meaning that based on historical information that City of LA has, they predict what will the flow be in next few years. And that's how they operate, if that makes sense.
Right. I mean, it's interesting because you were saying that, you know, we have an aging system, yet the capital is only 150.
The capital for the upkeeping of the sanitary sewer system has not been so active in last few years, and that's one of the things that I'm going to change. So basically going forward, I anticipate that that number would go up. The things that that is going to make a difference is every sanitary. Yeah, go ahead.
Elias, on page 12 of the staff report, 150,000 is for the fiscal year 2021. Each subsequent year after that, for the CIP piece, is $500,000. So Elias is correct. We're going to be investing more in our distribution system network.
Right.
Yeah, for 2021, we put it down to 150,000 because of the deficit spending that we were doing.
Right.
And we didn't want to continue that.
I guess if I could just, it would be great if I could just see these slides year over year. Because as you put more money into capital, then your operations hopefully would go down a little bit because you're not, I'm assuming because you're replacing older equipment, and so the repair goes down a little bit.
Right. So you're absolutely correct. Not only that, but with additional capital, we are going to be able to get rid of those broken pipes that potentially would contribute the infiltration inflow, which means anytime it rains, the water from storm sewer system cannot find its way into the sanitary sewer system. That's what you want to avoid, because part of the flow that is received before end of the day, which we have to treat, if it rains very hard and if our system is not a good system and consists of broken pipes, is part of that rainfall is going to end up in our sanitary sewer line and goes to the Hyperion plant for treatment, and we don't want to do that. So as we invest more money in our sanitary sewer collection system, we are going to not only reduce the operation cost, which means not only we reduce the maintenance of the pipes, but we also will keep the flows down and flows lower because we'll be able to not allow any rainfall flow to end up in our sanitary sewer collection system, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and so does that? It would be interesting to understand, the flow amount that they're charging us for as predicting. Is it because we had a rainy season and all of a sudden, our flow rates went up because we had more rain versus a drought period? It would be interesting to see that correlation.
Right. So that is exactly what we'll do. I do know that for last few years, we did not have a major development which required additional effluent, additional flow into Hyperion. So part of the additional flow that perhaps was registered by our flow meters, which Hyperion, based the future flow on those numbers, potentially might have come from these numbers that, as you indicated, because of the rainy season and those flows were basically registering more flow because the rainwater ended up in the flow, if that makes sense.
Councilmember Perstuck and Elias, we have 2 votes to proceed with the 218 process with additional language and clarity coming from staff as part of that package and process. Do we have a third? Is there anyone else that's interested in moving forward on the motion of this? I think our comments have been made loud and clear in terms of what we'd like staff to clarify.
Mr. Mayor, this is Chris Pimentel. I'm okay with us moving forward on the process with the caveat you put in there that we have to be very, very clear with the language. And I think much like we did with solid waste, there has to be an understanding in there that money. that this is not generating to use Mr. favorite term, a slush fund. And I think that those are things that we put in that language we'll want to be in there. I'm comfortable with moving ahead the process because we do need to get this going. And ideally, we get some resolution and justification during the process.
Okay, thank you, sir. One thing too, real quick, I know I mentioned this to you, Mr. Mitnick, is along with this, like a one-pager or an infographic or an explainer video. Something that we can share with our residents so this is this is more complex than solid waste, which is just a simple pass-through. This is a complex equation. And I think that to all of our points earlier, we need to break that down and make it as simple as possible for our residents and businesses so they understand that and support us. So I think along with the language, it would be really helpful from Barbara's department or somewhere in communications to have something that succinctly explains these rate increases. So, all right, we have Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Giroux. We have consensus. Councilmember Nickel.
I'm okay moving forward. I just want it stated for the record, and I think we all need to be aware of this, is that as much as, yes, it is a pass-through, it's not a pass-through proportionate based upon your personal usage. We have no way, there's no flow meter on the outside of my sewer pipe. So as much as I have an ADU on the back of my property that no one lives in, that the bathroom's not used, I'm going to be charged an extra $17.68 for the flow coming from that bathroom, which is not being used. And so we just have to remember in these moments that we have a population here in this town that bought property here when property was not worth what it is today. We have a population that's saved for retirement long before I was working. And these types of rate increases when they're living in a home alone, or it's just two elderly individuals in a house, these are the type of rate increases that, you know, a family of four, such as myself at a young age working full time, I may be able to weather these increases, but those elderly residents that we have, it really hits home for them. So as much as, yes, we can move forward and have the information provided, with it, it's still somewhat incomplete, and we need to be ready from a city staff standpoint, not just to push information out from the website, but to potentially target those specific individuals that will be most harshly affected by this increase.
Thank you, sir. All right. Do we have a motion?
Mayor?
Well, hold on. Councilmember First, I came off mute.
Yeah, I'm going to concur. I mean, I understand that we need to move forward, but I do want to make sure that we do our homework and that we have some clear understanding of the rate increases and the flow and why the bill almost doubled year over year.
Okay, noted. Thank you. Mr. Hensley, you're going to say something?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The notice that we put in front of the council for approval tonight and an authorization to send out to the customers and property owners, as well as to set the public hearing date. There's some additional information that we may add to the notice that we want authority to add. That is that the clerk's office is in communication with the county about the potential of using the drop-off box in front of City Hall that the county installed for the latest election to drop off the protest ballots. And we are still working on whether that will be allowed or not, or an alternate way to drop off the ballots. So we will make some adjustments to the notice to make that clear when we have that final determination made later this week.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so does someone like to make a motion directing staff to implement Proposition 218 protest ballot procedures? All right, I will. Boyles, do we have a second?
Pimentel, second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please do a voice vote?
Councilmember Giroux?
Yes.
Councilmember Nickel?
Aye.
Councilmember Perstuck?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel?
Yes.
And Mayor Boyles?
Yes.
Okay, 5-0.
Thank you. Mr. Hensley, would you read the resolution by title only?
The resolution actually is a resolution from the past. The staff report is incorrect in that it was just meant to be an attachment. It's a resolution passed a number of years ago that sets forth the procedures that the city uses for the Prop 218 process. So there's no need to take action on that.
Okay, so we're good. Like, right?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Great discussion. All right, we're on to reports, I believe. Let me just double check here. Yeah, reports, City Clerk.
Nothing tonight. Just wishing everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a New Year. See you guys all in January.
Thank you, ma'am. City Treasurer, is anyone on from the City Treasurer? Or Joe, is there anything to report there?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Thank you. And Councilmember Giroux.
Nothing from me tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Councilmember Nickel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank the Arts and Culture Committee for presenting again tonight. And I just wanted to let council know that we do have a presentation coming to us from the Park Vista Board. They've been in discussion about it. They're bringing us some information that they feel very passionately about. And I wanted to just say thank you to Paul Lanai, the president of that board, for pushing through social media the efforts to send holiday cards to all the residents at Park Vista. It was a very kind action by him. I know that they are just over 200 cards and they're pushing to beat last year's mark of 300. So if you have young kids at home or young kids in a pod, please encourage them to do some arts and crafts this week and send cards to our residents at Park Vista. And that's all I have for you tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Perstuck.
Yes, I also want to thank the Arts and Culture Committee for presenting tonight and everything that they've been doing. And I also want to give a big shout out to both the Parks and Recs and library staff, as well as the Public Works, for all their efforts in lighting up the town with the library park. And obviously our water tower, it looks great in color. So, and I know that it's been hard. There's been a lot of things that we've had to cancel, but our staff, along with a lot of clubs around town, have really been trying to make an effort to ensure that we have an amazing season. And so thank you to Kiwanis, Rotary, Women's Club, and all the clubs that have really helped ensure that everyone has a joyful Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. And I also want to give a shout out to the El Segundo Unified School District, who was able to bring their students back starting last week, K through 2. I know it was, they put a lot of effort and work into it, and I just congratulate them on making it happen and ensuring that the kids are safe. And that I hope that in the future, we'll have all kids back in the very near future. So I want to wish everybody a Happy Hanukkah, Happy Merry Christmas, and we'll see you in January.
Thank you, Councilmember Perstuck. Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
Just a few items, Mr. Mayor. For any of our bus riders, they should be aware that the next gen busing resolution is in the implementation phase. That's a 3-year project development by LA Metro. So the new bus routes will start to go into effect. That does affect busing coming out of Torrance, though not our beach access buses. So it's a reminder to check your routes and your routes moving forward. As an adjunct to that, the Metro Micro, we are one of the 2 pilot areas for the ride share that is subsidized by LA Metro. So for $1 per ride in different time windows, you can move through parts of the LAX area. The other area is in South LA, but our part includes Inglewood, Westchester, and the northern half of El Segundo from Mariposa north. So if you look at Micro, that app is downloadable. Again, those rides are only $1 each, but pretty constrained windows. We have the EIR continues the EIR notice period for LAWA. They will go ahead and present to the COG next month. And then we have sanitation this week. And I have not looked at the CIP portion of that yet. So I'll report on that in January.
Thank you, sir. Okay, South Bay City Council of Government, Mayor Pro Tem referred to it. There was a discussion at the steering committee just this week, and the decision was to stand up a committee, which anyone can participate in. I don't think we set a max number. We've already got about 5 council members from different cities that are participating to explore how to leverage the county Department of Public Health spas to get some essentially more flexibility, be more nimble when it comes to the health orders that are coming down. So the unanimous decision to look into that by the steering committee. And it was actually a joint steering committee and board of directors meeting, so that passed unanimously. So that will be happening. If you're interested, let Jackie Backrack know. On the AQMD, we had an LA City selection meeting. I think that was this week, or no, late last week. And up for grabs was the AQMD representative for our district. And we had Justin Massey from Hermosa Beach, who's an environmental lawyer who had raised his hand to replace Judy Mitchell from the Peninsula, who had served in that capacity for many, many years. And Justin bowed out in the 11th hour and supported another candidate, Liz Alcantara, who's the mayor of Kudahai. And anyway, Rex Richardson won. And I think he got like 57% of the population vote and maybe 26 of the cities that were represented. So he is our new AQMD rep. Rex Richardson, you might know him. He's the president of Southern Cal Association of Governments, and he's a Long Beach City Council member. So he's our new AQMD rep. And most importantly, we forgot a staff report. Scott, I don't know how we did this, but this is an urgent emergency action. And I'll just read it quickly. It's consideration and possible action regarding the annual request of Mr. S. Claus for variances from the municipal code. And the recommended council action is to approve the request by Mr. S. Claus for a waiver of the permits required for doing business within the city of El Segundo as follows. The use of air rights and waiver of the Santa Monica Radial 160R procedure. Grant a free business license for a nonprofit organization. Waiver of the noise ordinance to permit the sound of bells. Waiver of the trespass ordinance, including dealing with trespassing pesky animals. And waiver of the ordinance on animal regulations. Fiscal impact, none. And we do have to put this to vote. So if someone would like to make a motion to approve the staff report and action item.
Nichols, so moved.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Perstuck. Madam Clerk. I think we have consensus on this item, right? Is anyone opposed to giving Mr.
I don't think we need a vote for this.
There'll be some coal in your chimney if so. All right. And let's see, I'm going back to my notes here. Mr. City Attorney, anything to report this evening?
Just happy Hanukkah and Merry Christmas to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we have a couple.
Mr. Mayor,
sadly,
before you go to the memorials, I think we are amiss to not congratulate our 2 new sworn in school board members, Michael Wagner and Daima Wheaton. They were sworn in on Tuesday night. So we have 2 new electeds, and Tracy Zarnicki is rotated in as the new president of that board. So
cool.
Just thought we'd make mention. Congratulations to the 2 new electeds and the new position for Tracy, who also sits on our environmental committee. So,
right. Thank you, sir.
Sorry for interrupting you.
Not at all. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, sadly we have 2 memorials. I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem to read the first one.
Hey, you have Mr. Mitnick.
Oh, I'm sorry, Scott. Sorry, Scott.
Gee.
City Manager, I'm sorry. You've been so quiet this evening. I didn't even know you were there.
You stress out the city attorney for putting an item on there in violation of the Brown Act, and then you forget the city manager exists. Jeez.
I'm sorry.
I mean, that probably means the city manager is doing a good job because you're not angry with him. City Council, we're going to follow up as necessary tonight, and I do want to convey, I wish we were in the same room right now so I could look you in the eye. We will make sure that LA Hyperion has the appropriate staff there to answer these questions, because rest assured the cost increases are real. I apologize on behalf of the staff here that we weren't able to clearly have them answer those questions, but we will have that for you at the next meeting when this issue comes up. Before I talk about the items coming up on the next agenda, this is the last meeting of 2020. And to take a moment here, we celebrated the few employees that are retiring at the beginning of the meeting. Council, this was perhaps one of the toughest years in El Segundo's history as a municipality. I don't know if it was the toughest, perhaps back in the Depression it was much harder. And when the pandemic hit 100 years ago, that was probably really hard for the community as a young starting community. But this last year has been really rough. Just today, we got another warn notice from another business that's furloughing 46 employees. There have been several hundred, actually probably several thousand individuals who lost jobs in El Segundo during this calendar year. So it's been a very tough year. But I'm also, and we have had people get sick. We had at least one resident pass away from this that we know of. But Council, you have provided incredible leadership, a steady hand, and it's been very tough on the five of you during the calendar year, but you showed the leadership, and I'm really proud of the men and women that work here in the organization. It's been tough. For many of our employees, they haven't had any time off. They're not looking for any sympathy, but they've been working constantly, many even 7 days a week, to help ensure the safety of the community. We've had a number of employees get the coronavirus right now, and it's on the rise. So been a tough year, but a good year in that we stepped up, we rose to the occasion, we delivered services for the community, and we're committed to continuing to do so next year. We do know that we don't know when the pandemic's going to end, but we know a year from now, when we have this meeting next December, this should be behind us and better days are ahead of us. So I just wanted to point that out. Not to be too melodramatic, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say something. So for the next meeting on January 19th, we'll have the annual legislative platform in front of you for your consideration. The Development Services Department will be giving you an update on the general plan housing element update and other issues related to housing. We have some follow-up items that we said we'd get back to you on. So we'll start that process at the next meeting. Your Chief Financial Officer, Joe Lilio, will provide a preliminary fiscal year 1920 year-end report, so you can see how we ended the last fiscal year. And we also will have our Net Promoter Community Survey data, the feedback from residents and businesses. That'll be on your agenda. And the Senior Housing Board, as Councilmember Nickel had made reference to, they'll be giving you an update. We have some other items that we're working on as well. So good work tonight. I know that was a tough issue with water and wastewater. We will come back with answers to your question. We will have the clarity that you are desiring on behalf of your ratepayers. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
Thank you. My apologies for skipping you, Scott. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay, let's turn over to Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to take a minute to talk about a man who I don't think it's talked about quite a bit. And I think part of it is a man who was very, very influential and yet did not have a broad family exposure in town. George Hoops passed away, and he passed away 2 weeks ago. And George was important, not the least of which, or not in the smallest respect, because he disliked all of us so much. And he disliked really everyone in government. George is a throwback to a political philosophy that views government as a necessary evil and magnifies the fact that every dollar government spends, it takes from someone else. And that is a sort of key reminder as we make decisions about where it comes from, that even though he shook with this sort of righteous fury and this fierce integrity, it doesn't mean that his message was any less about how we spent the public funds. I think there is an irony in the fact that George didn't like compulsory charity, and he certainly didn't like schools, but George was a great teacher, and George was incredibly charitable. And there are numerous people in this town who learned mechanics from him. They learned tooling, they learned basic machinery, they certainly learned how to shoot. And George is giving of his time and has a fan club up and down Maple and up and down Loma Vista that is rich and robust in stories about him and how much of his time and his heart and his goodwill he gave, even if he would never smile while doing it. I will miss him. I'll miss him as a neighbor. I will miss him as a nemesis. And we mourn his passing. I would say he was the class of 1956 at El Segundo High School, but he'd be the first one to tell you that he was an attendee and not a graduate. So George Hoops, I think in all of our memories and all of our mailboxes will be missed.
Thank you, sir. That was really well done. Appreciate that. All right, next up, we have another memorial, unfortunately, and this is for Henry Arredondo. And Henry passed December 8th, 2020. And I got to meet Henry as he was part of the ESVP, or formerly the VIP program of the police department. And he's a proud member of the El Segundo Police Department's volunteer program with the police department, where he honorably volunteered close to 200 hours since 2018. He was born in Los Angeles and remained in the area throughout his life. Henry and his wife, Ann, had been married over 50 years, and so together they have 3 sons and 6 grandchildren. Henry worked in the airline industry, starting with Western Airlines and ending his career with Delta. Henry passed away on December 8th of a non-COVID-19 related illness. The police department and the entire El Segundo community will miss him dearly. Condolences to his family. Wish everyone a happy holiday, and here's to an incredibly successful and prosperous 2021. Good night, everybody. We're adjourned.